people like this. I like this too, talking about the corporate elite, talking about, how corporate interests run politics. This is all true. I would disagree that they don't have a party. I think they've got two. I think the Democrats or the Republicans are run by corporations, and maybe it's time we think about something else instead of going to either one for some crumbs.
Welcome to Fight Back Radio, a production of fightbacknews.org, taking you to the heart of the people's struggle. I'm your host, Richard Berg, and today our guest is Jared Hamil, who's a union steward in Los Angeles for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Local 396. He's a package car driver at UPS, and as I said, a union steward there. He was a shop floor leader and a building leader, in fact, even a national leader during the UPS contract campaign that happened recently. He's been a member of the Teamsters for Democratic Union for about 12 years and has worked for UPS for about that amount of time as well. So welcome to Fight Back Radio, Jared.
Thank you, Richard, for having me. I appreciate it.
So I want to start this off. The last months we've been talking about the protests that were going to happen at the Democratic and Republican conventions, and as we're recording here, we're about in the middle of the Republican convention week, and Monday we had the big protest there. Carlos Montes from your city was our last guest who was promoting that from the point of view of immigrant rights, and while we were outside protesting, and there was a lot of Fight Back Radio listeners there, I think, I'm proud to say. But as we were protesting outside, on the inside, on the first day during prime time, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters General President, their national leader, Sean O'Brien, was inside giving a speech, which is very rare because Republicans don't invite labor leaders to come to their convention, almost never. And in the case of the Teamsters, I think Sean said he was the first Teamster ever to speak at a Republican convention. And this, has had some controversy, and within the Teamsters, I'm guessing quite a bit of controversy. Could you give us your views on this, Jared? What do you think about Sean O'Brien speaking to the Republicans?
Oh, well, it's the talk of Teamster Town. Obviously, like, the presidential elections are very important to the Teamsters. They want to make sure, union agenda is put forward, and the question of who's going to deliver that is always people are thinking about. We knew that Sean O'Brien was going to speak, beforehand, and so I think everybody was pretty much listening in on it. And I talked a lot with my coworkers about it. We've been kind of talking about it for the past couple of days. I think, overall, the question of the speech itself, I think there's a couple of good points about it. Obviously, unions shouldn't be beholden to the Democrats or the Republicans. I think that's a good thing. For forever, as long as I've been alive, unions have given millions of dollars to the Democratic Party, and year after year, waiting for some major legislation, waiting for EFCA back in the Obama days, waiting for the PRO Act currently, and still unable to deliver that. So I think that's, a good thing that, we're not beholden to those. There are a couple of issues, though, obviously, whether or not I would speak, inside the room of the RNC. I don't know about all that. Trump and his cronies and the Republicans itself are no friend of the American worker. I know people like to talk about, and I know O'Brien likes to talk about Holly, but he's a senator, I think, obviously
Missouri, I think it is.
Yeah, it's Missouri. Okay, yeah. But overall, the Republican agenda is an agenda of corporations. It's an agenda of attacking unions. It's an agenda of privatizing people's pensions. It's an agenda of right to work. And you can ask any trade unionist in Wisconsin what they think about the Republican agenda under Scott Walker, which had the rise up just a few years back. So I think the audience for maybe O'Brien's speech, maybe not so much the Republicans, but maybe the protesters on the outside, maybe he would have had some more, a bigger applause outside. Likewise at the DNC in a few weeks. But another point about it is I think people like this. I like this too, talking about the corporate elite, talking about, how corporate interests run politics. This is all true. I would disagree that they don't have a party. I think they've got two. I think the Democrats or the Republicans are run by corporations, and we're not going to advance a workers' agenda through either one of these parties. Maybe it's time we think about something else instead of going to either one for some crumbs.
Yeah, I know in the 1990s we made a run at trying to get a labor party going in this country, and the slogan was along the lines of what you're saying right now was the bosses have two parties, but we need at least one of our own. And I mean, what struck me, I mean, I listened to the speech as well from President O'Brien, and I liked the parts of the speech. He was attacking the corporate elite, and he was raising up especially people that deliver goods, like people like you at UPS, but also people that work in the rails and the airlines, etc. And saying how these greedy guys don't give us crap. We have to fight for it. He maybe should have been more militant, but he was okay. But I mean, the truth, though, is that what you said is true. Neither of these parties have delivered anything for us, and it leaves most workers, thinking, well, what the hell can we do? And I don't think the answer is just an anarchist view of ignore politics completely. There are political things that workers need, and we don't want to abdicate the entire political arena to the rich people. And so it's not obvious, what we should be doing. If there's, these two Democratic and Republican parties that dominate our political lives, what is the way forward for working people? What political directions should we be heading in? I'm curious about your thoughts on that, Jared.
Well, I think we should start thinking about some alternatives other than, trying to lobby this, that, or the other senator, hoping that maybe the answer for labor is in some room, in Washington, D.C. But, to ignore the whole process, I think, obviously there's a lot of stuff that people can win. And that takes activity. It takes a mass movement of workers and unions together to fight for it. And I think about the recent history of like the Butch-Lewis Act that saved Teamster pensions recently. I know the Democrats like to claim that, it's something that, we did for them. And the reality is that the Butch-Lewis Act had a fight for years and years and years, especially from retirees, where they would go and they'd show up here, there, big protests, to make sure that they would get, money after their pensions were, basically, they didn't have any money in the pensions. But it took a mass movement of folks, and they engaged senators, they engaged politicians, but it was the movement itself that made it happen. And I think that should continue. I think, not just for reforms, but anything that has to do with working people's agenda. I mean, we need to get together and fight for it and really put the pressure. And then that's how we win.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, it's it's not the backroom deals that workers ever win by. It's in the back rooms is when they're talking about it's exchanging money and favors. What we got to do is do stuff out on the streets where we really get the people, where everybody is won over and is starting to pressure the elites to try to, give us some kind of concessions. And I mean, I actually think the Labor Party movement of the 90s was a good one. And even though we didn't have the strength at that time, I think we do need a political party that can speak for working people, that's run by working people. And we're not quite there yet, but that's, I don't know, that's my view. What's your idea on that?
Well, I mean, I think about it like contract negotiations or any sort of negotiations. I mean, there's two sides of the coin here. We have workers and we have the rulers, the owners of the business, and we make all the money for them and they keep it. And so we have to do what we can, whether it be a strike or not, to get as much as we can. And part of that process is negotiation. And no, we're not going to win everything in a strike. We're not going to win everything through negotiations, but we do have to negotiate. And what gives negotiators leverage is that mass part of it, which is whether it be a strike, whether it be a practice picket, whether it be all sorts of activities, But beyond contracts, I mean, I think we should apply the same thing, which is if workers need something, which we do, whether it be cost of living or healthcare or anything else, it takes a lot of pressure from the ground up to make it happen. And I think we should get together and continue with it. And that takes a political party, obviously, a political party run by workers themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think I want to go back to the convention a little bit more before we move on, though. I think, I think I agree with your co-workers who actually liked President O'Brien's speech for the most part, at least the way he attacked corporate America and speaking to the enemy in their room, it had a certain appeal too. But I think you go back to President O'Brien along with some other Teamster leaders. They went to visit Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and they now that he came and spoke at the convention, and he mentioned a couple of his VP candidate Vance, and he gave Trump kudos for being tough after getting shot, in the ear and such. But I mean, I think these things, and I want to mention also, you said earlier, Senator Hawley from Missouri, who's been calling for, we should at least acknowledge labor, but we shouldn't. We should continue to be, against civil rights, against all the things that the different, members of the Teamsters or any other working group is. It's we should be against rights for Black or brown people or transgender people and such like that. And women, we shouldn't give them, rights. And these are things that as working people, we have to stand up for. And by, and whether it be Hawley or O'Brien or Trump or whoever, these are not people that have stood up with us. When the minimum wage laws came, we wanted to raise minimum wage when Trump was president. They were all out against it. It's like they gave huge tax cuts to the rich, which caused a lot of the inflation that they're complaining about now. And so I don't know. I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, Jared, but it seems like that was a mistake to think that those folks are going to do anything other than just gaslight us to get a few votes.
Well, I think with obviously, like, Senator Hawley doesn't run the Republican Party. He's just maybe there's a couple of individuals in the party that may think like that, but the reality is that they do have to acknowledge that labor unions exist and they're going to fight like hell to get what they want and get what we need, and whether it be in a contract or whether we're under attack. I mean, you can't not acknowledge that unions aren't going to fight back. And so I think with Hawley, perhaps he's trying to divide some of the membership and bring them over to the Republican side. I don't think, though, that the Republican Party and the agenda of the Republican Party is a party of the American worker, rather the American business person, the American corporation. I think it's an agenda of hate for sure. I mean, I grew up in Florida, so I grew up under Jeb Bush and all the other ones afterwards, um, and so I got to see firsthand what the Republican agenda uh, does to unions and working people. So you can ask any teacher in Florida what they think about the Republican legislature. The fact that right to work's a big deal. It guts unions. When I was a Teamster in Florida too.
The right to work is union. Normally in a workplace, if the majority want a union, everybody's in the union then. Whereas when you have a right to work state, that's against the law. And so even if the majority want a union, people can pick and choose whether they want to be in or not. And the union still has to pay the money to represent everybody, even though folks aren't paying dues or resources aren't being put. It's a way to take resources away from workers' organizations. So
Right.
I know you know that, but I just wanted to, for our Fight Back radio listeners that aren't familiar with it.
No, for sure. I was actually having to explain that to a couple of coworkers. We don't have right to work in California, and so people don't know what it is, obviously. But in Florida, we do. And, it's a constant battle of signing people up for the union and battling, folks that don't want to join the union. And then they'll, everybody sooner or later gets fired at UPS. That's a joke. But, eventually, these folks have the same rights and we have to represent them as stewards or as business agents. But if you're only getting half of the dues, obviously you're going to be, as a business agent, more swamped with work and have less ability to represent than, say if you had 100%. And this is a whole designed by the Republican Party, and they want to bring this nationally. They don't want just a couple of states. There's a whole campaign behind a national right to work. And I don't think Trump is opposed to it. So this is part of the Republican agenda, the agenda of hate, of racism. I mean, I live in Southern California, a lot of immigrants, the constant fight for immigration reform and legalization for millions of undocumented people in this country who are taken advantage of by corporations, by big business, by big farms, if people are doing farm work, and using ICE to threaten them so they can pay them low wages. The stuff happening in Eagle Pass, where you have a Republican governor putting buoys with barbed wire so he can deliberately drown people just trying to swim across a river, search for a better life. And you've got a Republican governor who's just making sure people drown. That is the agenda of the Republican Party, not Senator Hawley.
Well, I'm not sure he's opposed to any of that, to be honest with you, too, even Senator Hawley. But let me pivot a little bit. I mean, it's like we were talking about Sean O'Brien, and he really, is represents something completely new in the Teamsters, not because he's speaking to the Republican convention, because the Teamsters have endorsed a number of Republicans, presidential candidates over the years, but because he replaced Jimmy Hoffa Jr., or the son of the infamous Jimmy Hoffa, and you're at UPS, and I think a lot of what got a lot of people in labor's attention was the contract campaign at UPS that really led to something big, something moving against all the years and years of concessions into some very large gains in the contract. We covered some of that on Fight Back Radio back at the time, but And even after that, I should say, the United Auto Workers strikes against the big three that also won big victories, they were very open about saying they took a lot of tactics and ideas from the Teamsters and tried to build on that. So here we are now, a year after almost a year after the contract settlement, and I'm thinking, with hindsight, and you were a leader of that too. You were a leader in Los Angeles, and even nationally, you were a spokesperson at different times. How do you look at the contract campaign at the United Parcel Service that the Teamsters waged a year ago, and the eventual settlement between the Teamsters and UPS?
Well, it's a long time coming, and like you said, it's we've had under the previous administration, we had years of concessions, and under previous contracts, part-time wages. I think when I started, you know, UPS starting wage was like 850, 950 an hour. And even back then we were talking about we need to raise the part-time wage. And yet nothing happened on it. And then more and more concessions after the following contracts. And so obviously the membership was very upset by this, wanting more activity, in terms of like trying to win more from UPS. UPS makes record profits. Everybody knows it. We're the biggest, maybe not the biggest. I think Amazon surpassed us now, but we're one of the biggest logistics companies in the world. And so while they make profits and then they're paying their workers, less than $10 an hour, you have to realize like, shit, we're being super fucking exploited. Sorry to cuss.
All right. We're an adult podcast here.
Okay. So, the membership was mad about it, contracts ago, and we went for new leadership, and I was a part of that. We helped to get O'Brien and Zuckerman elected to the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. I helped elect them. And we think that, or at least I think, it's been very positive. We've reversed, through contract campaigns that never existed before. I mean, to engage the members, to have practice pickets, to have rallies, to have activities that people can, get behind and support, something that you can fight for, that never existed under the Hoffa administration. And, this is why we elected new leadership. And for us in Los Angeles, I mean, we had some of the biggest rallies in, under the contract campaign. I think I shared a stage with O'Brien at one point, talking about, the needs of drivers, but also the needs for part-timers. So I think that something new and something very good about this administration is that we've been engaging the members, and we've actually been fighting where we haven't been before.
Well, let me ask you then. I mean, there's been critics on the left, probably not UPS drivers, but or workers, but people that have said, you should have went out on strike. You won a good amount, you did a good job, but you could have got even more if you would have struck instead of settled at pretty much the last minute. So how do you answer those kind of critics?
I mean, I'm on the left too, so I mean, who doesn't love a good strike? But and I think though that it's easy for folks outside of UPS to really say that, but the reality is that building a contract campaign of this magnitude, we're talking about the largest private sector contract in the country, 350,000 workers who've had a history of concessionary contracts, who've had a history of getting kind of shut out of negotiations and essentially left behind. What that does is it breaks the fighting spirit. It breaks solidarity between, essentially two tiers of workers. We have a massive, like 65%, 70% of workers at UPS who are part-time, and then the rest are full-time. And so something that was difficult for me, as a contract campaign leader, or getting people motivated, getting full-timers motivated, is saying, hey, part-time wages need to go up. Are you full-timer? You've been here 30 years. Are you willing to go out on strike for your coworker who's been here a year, so they can get somewhat of a living wage? Are you willing to do that? And it was a struggle to get people there. Now, when you enter into negotiations with that and get closer and closer to the question of a strike, is that sustainable? I don't know. Obviously, we want to win all we can, and I wasn't in negotiations, so I can't really say. But I think at the end of the day, we did do a damn good job of engaging people and fighting for things and getting a lot more and reversing concessions. The fact that we reverse concessions, that doesn't happen. But it happened this time, and I think it happened because thousands of Teamsters at UPS buildings from all over the country got off, and really fought for it. So
yeah, I mean, I think this is the idea that people that talk about class consciousness and solidarity, these are the kinds of things that are really the weapons where you can make gains. And the boss does the opposite. The Republicans, or Democrats for that matter, do the opposite, where they try to say, well, what's in it for you? You should join a union or not because you'll get this or that. But when you start to see your future tied to that of your coworkers, and that injury to one is an injury to all, and that what's my future, the future of our planet, the future of all of us is tied to the working class and to the class that we're all members of, instead of just can I get a few pennies here or there. And that's a lift. You're right, because people have they need to eat, they need to pay rent, they have they have families, or maybe they want to have families, and so they're trying to look at the whole class and not just out for yourself is a lift. And I know that's what you do every day. So let me ask you, as a union activist a year ago, I'm guessing you were awfully busy, and you were running from here to there, whatever. I know you're a father as well, and about to become a father again. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
And okay, the contract campaign's over now. You got an agreement. It's settled. Does that mean you just go back and you can, as an activist and a union steward, you put your feet up and you can chill out a little bit now? Or what does it look like now? What is what is and what should the union be doing at UPS right now?
Contract enforcement. We want all these great things, and we should be utilizing them, making sure, a year later, people still don't know that there's things in the contract that are different. And so we need to make sure that there's the new language is enforced, number one, but that we take that momentum that we built up so much during the contract campaign and keep it going, because we can really change, how people view the union, really empower the union, starting from the shop floor and move it on up. Right now, all over the country, people are engaging in a lot of heat-related issues in terms of enforcing some of our language around heat protection. So it's
like the weather protection against summertime warm weather. So those warehouses aren't all air conditioned, or?
No, they're not, unfortunately. They're 90 degrees in there. You walk in, you start sweating. Even just, as a driver, I'll go downstairs because we got two levels in our building. Just start sweating. It's bad. And it's only, it's going to get worse. August is obviously going to be a lot worse. And this year hasn't been too bad in terms of the heat waves, but we do get them bad. And other parts of the country are already feeling the heat, over 100 degrees temperatures. And for us as drivers, the big thing is, we're out it may be 95. The back of the truck's going to be 125. You're digging for boxes, and this is where heat-related illnesses and people can pass out. All sorts of stuff can happen, and we've got new language to protect ourselves. Meaning, does every truck have a fan? Is every new truck coming in, does it have the AC that we talked about or that we won? Making sure people get, the ability to have a cool break, go seeking basically AC and shelter if you're feeling like something's happening. Access to water is a big one. So we've got old buildings that have essentially, like the water fountains that are disgusting, so making sure that the company that makes record profits is providing good, clean water for the entire workforce, not just drivers, but part-timers as well. So that's what we should be doing and making sure people are safe.
No, that's good. I mean, it's I know this is something you've been involved in a long time. I've known you for a few minutes, and I remember when you were working in the warehouse, you led a campaign in Los Angeles to get fans in the warehouse for workers there, and for you as well. And that even spread to a few other places around the country. So this is, if you're doing, for people that have never worked at UPS. This is like backbreaking work. They don't. This is not like an easy job, and to do it in that kind of heat can threaten your safety and your livelihood. So, I mean, let me ask you about this idea, and I think this is related. The idea of building fighting unions. I mean, there's been as opposed to just the old business union model. Building a class struggle kind of unionism. Can you talk a little bit about what that actually means, and how that's different than the business union model, as we'd say, for example?
The business union model. How does that work?
You sound so enthusiastic about it there, Jared.
Well, for people that, look, a union is only as strong as the union on the shop floor, meaning the union together, coworkers together, the union itself. And, it's not the shop steward by himself. It's not the business agent by himself. It's all the workers on the shop floor. The traditional business unionist model, you have a violation. The company does something, and they violate the contract. So you file a grievance, and hopefully it gets remedied, and everything is okay. Maybe at the end of the day, I'm not saying this happens in my local. I'm just saying in a broader sense. But maybe the grievance that you file never gets heard. Maybe the business agent, throws it away. This stuff does happen. Whereas we should take an approach as real trade unionists, fighting on the shop floor as class struggle militants, understanding that there's two sides to this coin. At UPS, we've got the supervisors protecting the interests of the corporation, meaning they want production. They want you to deliver as many boxes as possible. They want you to load as many trucks as possible. They don't care how much you're actually, if you're feeling bad or if your safety's at risk. They don't care about that. You're a number to them, and they want to exploit you to the max. So for us as a unionist, we need to understand that we're all part of the same class here, a class that our interest is not in the benefit or not in the whether or not the company does well, but whether or not our contract is adhered to, whether or not we get good wages, whether we can win as much as possible through contract fight or contract negotiations, and that even after the contract is that we can still move things if we get together and make it happen. So maybe something's not in the contract. Well, why don't we make something happen? You know, and it goes beyond just maybe a local workplace, but something a lot bigger than that.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. So it's like the power is actually in the workers, and we need to engage them in the fight. Let me ask you about I'm thinking about the United Auto Workers. After their big contract victory, they immediately pivoted to try to organize some of the big auto factories in the South, and they had some success at Volkswagen in Tennessee, and they lost, but it clearly made an impact at the Mercedes-Benz factory in Alabama. And during after Sean O'Brien was elected, the big company that's out there, I think the largest company in the world is Amazon, and people said, well, the Teamsters should go out and organize Amazon. And what he said was, as I recall, was, well, why would people want to work? Why would they want to be in the Teamsters if we have a crap contract? We got to get a good contract at UPS to show that there's a benefit to being in the Teamsters. And I think Sean O'Brien was probably thinking similarly. Their victory at Volkswagen, or Sean Fain, I'm sorry, from UAW, the victory at Volkswagen, I think, was propelled by the fact that people saw you can make gains by being in a union. And so my question is, what's happened with Amazon and the Teamsters in the last year, and what are we looking at ahead? What's our goals? If we're Teamsters or labor union activists for Amazon.
Well, there's a lot to say on it. You brought up Alabama and organizing in the South for UAW, so it reminds. Obviously, it's always been difficult. The South has a long history of repression of organizing, but also the organizing of African Americans, whether it be through the local governments there or even employing vigilantism or the KKK. I mean, there's a long history of struggle for unionizations in the South. And sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. I think even at Amazon, that was Mercer or Alabama a couple years back that lost its union election. So for us as Teamsters, obviously this is our bread and butter. Organizing Amazon. We've been talking about it for God knows how long, even under the Hoffa days. But unfortunately, during the Hoffa days, nothing was done about it. Meanwhile, Amazon got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so now that we have a new administration that's taking it on, it's that much harder to organize them. Obviously, they have all the laws written in the favor of Amazon. For our local in 396, we were the first ones to organize Amazon drivers. So we had out of Palmdale, we have like 82 drivers that were organized. It's the first time it was ever done. And they're technically considered, Amazon doesn't want to call them employees. They're independent contractors under a delivery service provider, but they're Amazon employees, let's be real. And so organizing them in one place by one place by one place is incredibly difficult. You saw recently ALU in New York affiliated with the Teamsters. I think that's a great thing.
That's the Amazon labor union that had got a lot of headlines a couple years back when they unionized. Right. Yeah, go ahead.
And they've struggled to get their contract and everything too. I think it was a good move to go with the Teamsters. I'm a proud Teamster, so I'm going to say that. But
no, it's true though. I mean, it's like when labor's united together, and organizationally and otherwise, the potential strength is much higher. It's not automatic. You need to have leadership and members united as well. But you're a proud Teamster for good reasons, I think.
Mm-hmm. And organizing Amazon's going to be, it's a David and Goliath story here. Amazon, what is the biggest company in the world at this point? And they employ, I can't even tell you how many people they employ. But the reality is that it's going to take a tremendous effort. The Teamsters are spearheading that, of course. But I think all of labor needs to unite on this effort, because the fact of the matter is I don't think that the Teamsters can do it alone. It's going to take a lot of resources, a lot of money to take on such a giant corporation who just continues to get richer and richer. And they do all sorts of stuff besides, just regular package delivery. I mean, they're involved with their, the other side of it is a lot of tech and things like that. So, they have Amazon Video and things of that. It makes them a lot of money.
Yeah, no, you're right. I know here in Chicago, we just Teamsters Local 705 just struck Amazon. There was one of these personal delivery things that where you basically correct me if I'm wrong here. They basically subcontract out, but it's not really subcontracting out, so that it's confusing who the employer is, and it's a way to get around labor laws and other things, so that everybody's wearing the Amazon vest and delivering and blah blah blah, but they're technically working for somebody else. But they fired all these guys, and so they're out on strike now because they wanted to join a union. And so but yeah, I think ultimately though, we had Chris Townsend on here recently. He talked about organizing United States Steel back in the 20th century, and they had a nationwide strike. This kind of solidarity we were talking about earlier on, they were able to build on that kind of nationwide level. And I don't know if you'll need a strike at Amazon or what, but you'll need something a lot more than what we have now, is my sense. And it's thank you for speaking to it, but the question is, how do you get there? I think.
Well, there's a lot to say on it. That they're technically delivery service providers that they contract, that Amazon contracts. So so this is what happened over here in 396 is they unionized over here, and then Amazon immediately cut the contract with the delivery service provider. And obviously, it's an unfair labor practice. We've got ULP pickets periodically.
This is a violation of federal law, the National Labor Relations Act, and the way a union raises the issue of violations of the National Labor Relations Act is filing an unfair labor practice with the labor board. That's what you have done at Local 396, I think.
That's correct. And I've been to a couple of the pickets myself. And they're pretty awesome to see. Other Amazon workers know they're getting exploited. They're making less than $20 an hour to go do what a UPS driver does. The supervisors aren't happy we're there, but the Amazon workers are. That's for sure. So in terms of what it's going to take and what are the next steps, I think the question of solidarity is an important one. As a UPS driver, and I think most people understand this, but we need to motivate, some of our coworkers in on this is, Amazon workers are our brothers and sisters, maybe they don't have a union, but it's to the benefit of the UPS worker or anybody in the industry that we unionize Amazon. Because guess what? During contract negotiations, UPS likes to cry about how they won't make as much because Amazon pays its workers $18 an hour, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, it's a tactic. But if we can raise the standards for Amazon workers, we can raise up the entire class together. And I think that's the bottom line. And, obviously getting our coworkers to come to pickets, speaking with Amazon workers. A couple of times we've brought in some of the Amazon workers to UPS to speak on it, which has been pretty awesome. People like it, to speak to our coworkers. So, obviously extending the hand of solidarity and making sure that, we fight for them too.
No, that's important. That's important. Let me pivot again here a little bit. I mean, the Teamsters are a big union. There's over 1 million members. I'm not sure the exact number right now, but back, for decades, the Teamsters have been unique in the sense that they've had a nationwide caucus called Teamsters for Democratic Union. And I know you're a member of TDU, or Teamsters for Democratic Union. And I was wondering if you could tell our Fight Back Radio listeners a little bit about what that organization is and the role it plays in trying to transform, whatever, moving from the Hoffa days to the O'Brien days, and trying to keep the union on track.
Right. So, I would say that, for us in the Teamsters, we've turned around our union. We've brought it from a place in my time, a place of where the officials didn't engage the membership, where grievances were going unheard, where contract violations occurred, and we were losing out on future contracts through concessions. And so for anybody that wants to fight for more in their union, for fighting more that they can get out of contracts, reforming your union is an essential part of that. O'Brien and Zuckerman wouldn't have been elected if it wasn't for the reform movement in the Teamsters. And that reform movement is Teamsters for a Democratic Union. It's existed since the 70s, long before I was born. But one of the things that motivated me to get, to join was, I wasn't always in Local 396. I used to be in another local. I won't name names, but in terms of engaging the leader, the membership, I mean, you never saw the president of the union at the hub, which was only 2 miles away from the union hall. Grievances went unheard. Our shop stewards weren't the best. We wanted to run elections. They refused. I mean, we wanted to see more out of our union, and the leadership of our local straight up said no. And I was, me and quite a few others we wanted more out of it. And, TDU had existed, and we had talked with folks from there, and this wasn't just an isolated case for us. Others believed in, other militants in the union wanted to fight more, to get their union on track and get more out of these contracts and get more militancy in their union, because that's what it's about, right? So TDU's that's the reform caucus, that's the reform movement within the Teamsters. But it's been an example for a lot of other unions as well, whether it be UAWD and UAW. I think UFCW has something in the works as well.
That's United Food and Commercial Workers Union. There's lots of letters in the labor movement.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. You good?
But a lot of different unions and reformers have taken the example of TDU to fight more and to get more from their unions. and that's what it's going to take. I think, for a lot of trade unionists, the answer is, oh, we just need to unionize. We just need to unionize, get more into the membership. And I mean, we do need that, but I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is, the first and foremost is, we got to get our unions to fight more, where for years they haven't. Um, and if you want your union to fight more, I'd suggest joining a reform caucus like TDU. You'll learn a lot, you'll do a lot, and you'll meet a lot of good folks along the way that share similar ideas and values. And perhaps in the future, hopefully sooner rather than later, we can see a real trade union movement that's fighting back after years and years of being, driven into the ground through Republican agendas, or even through the Democrats as well. So.
No, I think that's good. I was a member of the Teamsters for 20 years, and I'll underline what you said. TDU was invaluable at helping activists skill up and learn things that some locals, as you mentioned, are better than others at educating their members and their stewards. And TDU was always there, always willing to have the educational materials to let people know how to do it, but also creating networks which allowed people to get involved in running for office and challenging, and they were, it was TDU members that played a decisive role, in my view, in getting Sean O'Brien elected president. But having said that, Sean O'Brien is not a member of TDU. He spoke at their convention, and there's an alliance there for sure. And I know you are a member of TDU. But how would you assess, Sean O'Brien? You've talked a bit here about Amazon and about UPS, but the Teamsters, and if I want to open it up if you want to say more than that about those things. But also, there's the Teamsters are more than that. They're rail. They have manufacturing and warehouses across the country. What's left of the freight industry, some of it, good of the unionized freight industry, which is a small thing, but it's Teamsters. So what's Jared Hamil's assessment of Sean O'Brien? About 2 years left on his term, I think. Maybe a little more.
Well, and obviously Teamsters, we do everything. Even my local, it's mostly UPSers, but also sanitation. Different companies like Waste Management Republic. Those are big sanitation companies. My assessment, me, package car driver, I would say in my short years in the Teamsters, because 12 years ain't nothing compared to a lot of Teamsters, but I'll say, I think the union's headed in a good direction. I think we've seen more in the past couple of years through the O'Brien and Zuckerman administration than I've seen in the previous decade under the old administration. Whether it be actual contract campaigns, not just at UPS, but Cisco, Budweiser, more recently, where we're taking on big companies and we're fighting for it. That didn't exist before. Just to be clear, if you're not a Teamster, that stuff didn't exist before. So we do have leadership that is willing to do things that the previous administration didn't do. So I would say, obviously everything could be better, right? There's still a lot of work to do. But in terms of engaging the membership, what I've seen is, under this administration, if you want to do things, there's plenty of work for you to do, and you can do it. Especially in my local, you can get involved. So I think we're in a good direction. I would say overall good. I'd give them a good grade.
Okay, that's fair. I think, anyways. Unfortunately, we're starting to run out of time here, but before we end the interview, I want to give you a chance if there's anything that we didn't, I didn't ask you that you wanted to speak on, or anything you wanted to raise. Any points you want to leave our Fight Back Radio listeners with.
Oh, well, there's a lot to say. I mean, obviously, continue listening to Fight Back Radio. Please check out Fight Back News. But if I know the RNC protests, or there's another one coming up, but please go to the DNC convention and protest. Put forward a workers' agenda, or and a people's agenda too. There's a lot of injustices in this country. There's a lot of things that we can be fighting for. Join organization. If you're working and you have a union, be involved in your union. Fight on the shop floor. Engage your coworkers, get them to fight as much as possible. I think the biggest thing too is, and I say this all the time to folks, is the union's not over there. The union's right here in the workplace. So, your solutions to your problems can be right here if you just get everybody involved. So who knows what the next year will look like? If we have a different president, I think we have a lot of work to do either way. If Biden's president too. We have a lot of work to do as trade unionists. So please be involved, and please keep fighting no matter what. That's what it's about.
All right. Thank you for being our guest on Fight Back Radio, Jared.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me.
So, Sean O'Brien gave us quite a stir and a bit to talk about with his speech at the Republican National Convention. And I want to thank Jared Hamil for giving us perspective. It seemed to be right away I thought Jared would be the guy we want on here, because he's been an activist in the Teamsters a long time, and he talks, as you could hear in his episode, talks to people every day, and I thought it would be good to hear that. I was glad to see many of our Fight Back Radio listeners in Milwaukee at the March on the Republican National Convention. I thought it went, our side of it went smoothly. I think we got our points across. I want to really congratulate the organizers and the marshals and all the people who made sure that everything went so smoothly. There was water there on a very hot day they had for us, and first aid people, and when or the anti-abortion people tried to, jam the stage, they handled it really quickly, and it was like seamless. So I want to thank everybody that was involved in that, and thank our Fight Back Radio listeners for coming out. We have one more convention to protest, though, and Joe Biden's policies in Gaza deserve protesting for sure, along with so many other things. And so I'm inviting everybody to Chicago, August 19th, to protest the Democratic National Convention, and hopefully we'll see you all here. Also, I want to encourage people to, promote this episode with Jared. I think the discussion about what the Teamsters are doing in regards to the Republican Party are things that we need to talk about amongst the working class. So, as I've said over and over again, you're our PR firm, so send an email to a friend and say, hey, listen to Fight Back Radio. And if you use Twitter or whatever social media, retweet it or share it, whatever you do. If you give us 5 stars or a thumbs up or write a review, depending on what platform you use, all those things help us as well, help people find us at least. And especially I want to thank our production team, because we're going to, we're doing some changes here, and it's not seamless because I'm not a very good techie. But I particularly want to thank Vince Olson and Shane Tremley, but also Dodd McColgan and Natalie Pranis. And I'm Richard Berg for our entire Fight Back Radio team, saying until next time, all power to the people. I will say, even after we're done with this, these guys are tricky. So anything you say may show up in the after notes or whatever.
Oh
What they
shit.
like to do is usually they like to make fun of me, but
Okay, as long as it's not me, you know.
no, you're the guest.
Okay.